Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a huge issue today. The African continent is honestly standing at a massive economic crossroads. There's this really concerning macroeconomic trend happening right now, and it could literally dictate the prosperity of millions of people over the next few decades. You know how when economies develop, there's usually a standard ladder of progression? Well, what happens if you try to just skip the most crucial rung? The long-term structural vulnerabilities can be absolutely immense, impacting everything from widespread job creation to how a nation competes in global trade.
So, this brings us to the big, urgent question we're unpacking today. Is Africa missing out on the benefits of sustainable industrial development? Historically speaking, moving from an agricultural economy to a manufacturing powerhouse has been the single greatest poverty reduction engine in human history. I mean, industrialization builds a strong middle class, it drives tech innovation, and it boosts exports. If a whole continent skips this vital step, the long-term economic consequences are pretty staggering, leaving their economies super exposed to global supply chain shocks.
Let's get into the voice of policy. To help us navigate this, we're looking at the work of Oluyomi Ola David. She is a prominent Nigerian policy influencer, and her work is deeply focused on global developments and economic transformation. Now, in the super complex world of macroeconomic policy, having a localized, boots-on-the-ground perspective is just invaluable. She isn't just looking at spreadsheets from thousands of miles away as an external observer. She brings a highly authoritative and deeply personal lens to the very fabric of her continent's future. Her grasp of the unique structural nuances in Africa really makes her insights vital for figuring out what comes next. And her mission is explicitly clear. She says, I enjoy generating solutions, influencing policy/strategy, and providing clarity. This is absolutely essential to recognize. She doesn't just point out structural gaps or complain about economic vulnerabilities. No, she's actively architecting the roadmap to fix them. She tackles these complex hurdles with a genuine, driven desire to give real, actionable clarity to the policymakers who are actually on the ground navigating these volatile transitions.
Which leads us perfectly to our next section, Premature Deindustrialization Explained.
The defining concept she explores is premature deindustrialization. What is that? Well, it's shifting towards services sector-led growth before a nation has fully realized the massive gains of traditional industrialization. And it's crucial to understand something here. The services replacing manufacturing in this specific context are rarely those high-end financial, IT, or professional services. Instead, developing economies are seeing a huge shift into low-productivity, informal services. This creates a severe structural vulnerability. Instead of building a rock-solid foundation of factories, physical production, and scalable jobs, the economy prematurely pivots. It completely bypasses the massive job creation engine that traditional manufacturing naturally provides. When she compares services sector-led growth directly against sustainable industrial development, she issues a pretty stark warning. She argues that if a country relies mostly on services too early, the foundational economic gains of industrialization become, and these are her exact words, few and far between. Think about it. Sustainable industrial development carries a massive economic multiplier effect. Every single manufacturing job usually creates multiple peripheral jobs in logistics, supply chains, and localized research. By missing this phase, nations basically forfeit that multiplier, leading to stalled wages and way too much reliance on imported manufactured goods. She argues passionately that no country in Africa can afford to miss out on these foundational benefits.
Moving right along to the energy infrastructure enabler.
So, what actually enables private manufacturing? If an economy realizes the very real danger of premature deindustrialization and urgently wants to build a physical industrial base, what's the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite? What if factories and industries actually need to function and thrive in a hyper-competitive global market? The answer is secure and stable energy infrastructure. Without reliable power, production lines just stall, operational overhead costs absolutely skyrocket, and private investment dries up entirely. Energy security isn't just a nice-to-have civic utility, it's literally the foundational enabler for private manufacturing. If a factory has to rely on super expensive backup generators just to keep the lights on, it immediately loses its competitive edge globally. She zeroes in on stable power grids as the core structural pillar that is absolutely required to halt and eventually reverse premature deindustrialization. Let's look at the next piece of the puzzle, upgrading technical skills. Because physical infrastructure alone isn't going to cut it. A state-of-the-art manufacturing facility without highly trained operators is, well, just a stranded asset. She points out 3 urgent human capital needs here. First, an immediate upgrade of technical skills.
Second, using those skills to boost current manufacturing output. And third, expanding future industry capabilities. Right now, there's a critical mismatch between educational outputs and the highly specialized demands of modern manufacturing. She closely links the technical know-how of the workforce to the actual physical capability of the industry itself. You simply cannot scale up production if your workforce lacks the specialized training to operate, maintain, and innovate within those environments.
Which brings us to the drivers of manufacturing output. She synthesizes all of this into a really clear three-step output formula. Let's break it down. First, baseline manpower. That's the upgraded technical skills we just talked about required to run tomorrow's sophisticated machinery. Second, forceful political will. This means the decisive governance needed to push tough, long-term economic plans through all those bureaucratic hurdles. And third, enabling energy-secure environments, the robust physical infrastructure. These three elements interact in a specific sequence. Forceful political will creates the long-term policy environment required to fund and build the energy grid. That grid, in turn, provides the stable, electrified environment where the baseline manpower can actually produce sustained, scalable economic value. It's like a giant puzzle, and every piece needs to fit perfectly. When you combine them, these three elements act as the definitive drivers of manufacturing output. By strategically aligning manpower, political will, and energy security, she's engineered a comprehensive and really powerful blueprint. And this isn't just theoretical economics drawn up on a whiteboard. It's a vital survival strategy for developing nations. Implementing these interconnected drivers ensures sustainable, continent-wide industrial development. It protects economies from the insidious pitfalls of premature deindustrialization and locks in a real trajectory for long-term wealth creation and stability. So the policy brief lays out the macroeconomic roadmap perfectly, but flawless execution requires really decisive, unyielding governance. Which leaves us with this massive question. If the formula is clear, will the forceful political will emerge in time to secure Africa's industrial future? It's a question of immense critical urgency, especially as global supply chains are continuing to realign at a rapid pace right before our eyes. The window to capitalize on these massive industrial benefits definitely won't stay open forever. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll see you next time.